Are you happy in your business? Now, I have had my share of emotional ups and downs in my 20 years of being a solo entrepreneur coach. And the patterns I've seen in myself and in my clients is that those downs are usually when I was personally feeling unfulfilled. Sometimes it was because a launch that flopped, and sometimes it was just life and had nothing to do with business. But those ups, oh boy, those are the times when I was feeling my most authentic and completely aligned to my purpose, or when I just felt like I was rocking that work-life balance. I would be thinking I could do this all day long and never feel tired. One of my loves is sharing what works for me and what has been working for my clients to achieve this very feeling, full of passion, happiness, peace, and freedom. So I decided to create a private podcast for coaches. Maybe you just want to develop better communication skills that boosts engagement, leads to better results, and makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the lives of the people you serve. Then you're invited too. We talk about this and more in the UBU private podcast for coaches. Whether you're a mentor, a parent, or run a client-focused business, coaching skills benefit everyone and anyone who wants to communicate in a way that builds relationships. Fall in love with your life and business again. Click the link in the show notes for your invitation to join us right now. Then come back and enjoy this episode. Hey, Difference Maker. So this is the Unbox Your Personality podcast and the Unbox Your Personality Facebook group. It's the online business network just for coaches and educators, just like you, trying to help each other out, learn more about ourselves for that personal growth. And from that personal growth, that's where our business growth can really scale. So I'm excited today to be talking about human design. Now, this is something that people ask me about it all the time, and I just don't really, I know just enough to carry a conversation. And it's usually a one-sided conversation. But anyway, I'm so happy to have Kristen Smith. She is a human design expert and uses it in her business, which is all about quantum healing. And I'm going to let her say a little bit more about that. Make sure you're just subscribed to this Unbox Your Personality podcast. It's everywhere podcasts are played. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. It's time to stop comparing yourself to others and plug in to what is uniquely you. Welcome to Unbox Your Personality, the podcast for coaches, creatives, and educators like you who understand that your happiness makes you more effective at what you do, bringing out the best in others. I'm Jen P. Higgins, personality strategist and Enneagram fluff remover. Get laser focused on who you are and who you aren't, so you're free to make the impact you were born to make. And have fun doing it. Your personality is your business. So let's get down to business. I'm happy to introduce Kristen Smith. Thank you so much for being here. And just let everybody know who you are and who you serve.
Great. So I'm Kristen Smith, and I am a quantum healer who utilizes human design in my business to really align people with their soul signatures, because we all come into this life with specific gifts and talents and energy. And so as an energy worker, I love working with this system, which is sort of like archetypes or astrology. And it allows me to really dig deeper into my clients, my mentees, and to figure out what their life is for. So a big part of what I do is through my whole business plan, it's more to align resilient women to trust themselves, because a lot of the time, if you've been through things in your life that have weathered you, that have made you strong, sometimes you're still looking for that external validation to live your own life. It's easy to go into victimhood or martyrdom, but instead I pull people onto the other side of empowerment and self-trust and self-compassion. And so a lot of the time when I'm working with my clients, they come through my programs because they're looking to dive into themselves. Like you said, it's the work within is the first step. and the external happens after.
Yes, absolutely. And I know a little bit of your story, and hopefully you're okay to share with it. But I know that a lot of my motivation in business, it has a lot to do with my personality. And there's that nature part of your personality, but there's also that nurtured part of your personality, which is our story and our experiences that drive us to do what we do. And I know for me, it was being a parent and my son and struggles. And would it be okay if you just kind of share a little bit of what drives you in your business?
Yes, absolutely. There's really a twofold aspect to this, I think. So the first thing that I think really has driven me to this mission is that I grew up in a situation where I was provided for, I received everything I needed, material wise, and even had a fairly supportive experience through schooling. But the emotional support and the mental support wasn't always present. And so as I grew up, it became a lot more unstable. And I actually decided to go no contact with my family. And it became a very interesting journey on my end because I went through shame, grief, guilt, being misunderstood, misunderstanding. And there's a lot of things that I worked through. I worked with coaches. I worked on myself. I was on a mission with really learning about holistic modalities and felt very misunderstood in that way as well. And so I had this opportunity to say, well, do I want to stay on this journey of deciding I'm misunderstood and identifying that way? Or do I choose instead to trust myself and decide that people don't have to understand, but they also get to understand me? And so that's the route I chose. And so over the past few years, I have been working with that to really elevate the way that I show up for myself. And this impacted me significantly because, as I spoke to you about before, in 2021, I became pregnant with twins. And a little bit of a trigger warning, I ended up losing one of my sons in childbirth. And so there was a lot that came back and flooded around shame, guilt, grief, the same heavy things. But I had this drive and this desire to remain consistent with myself and with my holistic approach to life and the techniques that I had gathered through my journey and my professional life. I was able to push through and work through with self-compassion. And so that was very important, really this whole past year of my journey. And with quantum healing, I've been able to dig deeper into the parts of me who are an energetic connection to my son. And so I have a beautiful connection to my son who is with us here on earth and another one to my son who's not. And I really love to empower moms and people who are trying their best, but feel like there's something that they're still seeking permission from others. They're still seeking validation. Maybe they grew up in a household where they have a mother wound and they doubt that it's bad enough to do anything about it like I did. But eventually maybe you can set boundaries and create spaces where you can stand up for yourself. And it's a ripple effect into your life as a mom as well. So a lot of people I work with are moms. A lot of people I work with are women, but it's something that everyone can benefit from for sure.
Yeah. So you dudes in the group, and we don't leave you out.
No, definitely not. My husband's a doctor of TCM and an artist, and we very much have grown and evolved together and apply a lot of the same concepts and overlap and intertwine. So it's definitely for both, but it's interesting to see who gravitates towards our work, right? So that's right here.
Yeah. And at least for me, I feel like you get a certain level of awareness, or there is a certain level of awareness that starts to gravitate to that kind of work. And so sometimes people just aren't ready, and that's okay.
Yes.
It's absolutely okay. Everybody has their own journey.
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't grow up with this at all. And so I actually am known to be the person people send to when they're brand new because I break things down in such a digestible way. And I even use popular culture references as, case studies to explain concepts in the quantum field. And so it's a really interesting journey I've been on to get here. I feel like that's part of why I'm on this journey to make it more accessible.
Are you feeling a bit disappointed that you haven't finished that project yet? Are the kids' schedules impacting your business? Or are the demands of your business affecting your relationships at home? Maybe you need a magic formula for that work-life balance before your fire gets so dim or it completely burns out. I've been there. There was a point in my life where I was juggling 2 businesses and homeschooling and had personal health issues. There was barely time to even connect with myself, much less connect with my husband. When I was finally officially diagnosed with ADHD, I felt like that explained everything. I had a new perspective and started approaching things in a new way. So I created a guide containing 20 tips that I personally use, and they have worked for me for helping me stay on course with my goals. Now, you might not have ADHD, but I bet you can relate to having a million distractions during the day. So if you're ready to stop procrastinating or stop being hard on yourself for missing yet another deadline, self-imposed or not, go ahead and download the guide at powercoachjen.com. If you just find one tip from the list that helps you move forward today, you will be so glad you took the time to read it. Go to powercoachjen.com and download the guide right now.
That's so amazing. I want to get back to the quantum thing, but I want to do that in the after party. But I would want to ask you, how did understanding your human design help you realize that, oh, this is what I want to do? This is how I want to help people?
Oh, it helped everything. I have been into human design and self-studying for about 6 years now. Sort of before it was popular, I learned about it and it really changed my whole life. I'm a projector and I'll go into the different types and so you'll know what they all mean and you can go and figure out what yours is. But for mine, it made a lot of sense because projectors are natural guides and teachers, but we need to wait for the invitation. Otherwise, the guidance we provide just falls flat. And so there's so much to be learned about strategies that we have with human design and how that shows us if we're successful or if we're not using our strategy correctly. And it's a very simple way to dive into human design. There's so many layers to it, but for me, it changed the way that I interact with people. It changed the way I do business. It changed the way I market. It really did magnify a lot of things in my life that I needed to shift to experience success.
Wow, that is so cool. I'm personality psychology geek. I just happen to marry the Enneagram. So I just tell people like, whatever you use, whatever system that you use that helps you unbox yourself, I am there. Like, my expertise in the Enneagram is more for me to understand and communicate with other people to help them in their business as a business coach. So it's more for me, for my self-awareness, so that I can be the best version of myself as a business coach to help other people in their business. So I'm really excited. I know that you asked me for my birth date and to approximate the time of day. I am at my parents' house, so this is why I have a different background. I'm actually in my childhood bathroom. But I did ask my mom and what time. She doesn't remember. I'm the youngest of 3, so but I was excited to give you that information and really learn more about me. But it's not all about me. So how many profiles are there? Well, first of all, what is human design?
Sure.
For the people who are brand new, like, what are the names of the profiles and maybe a couple of quick description traits?
Yeah, sure. So human design is a channeled system. So that is another reason why I'm intrigued by it. There is a little bit of question and a little bit of controversy about it, but it has, I think, created a bigger positive impact than negative. So There's Rahul, who is this man who channeled this, but it's a combination of different astrology modalities across the world combined into, such as the chakra system, the Bata chart for Chinese medicine. I think there's a couple others. I think there's one that originates in Judaic culture and tradition. And they're sort of combined but modernized so that it is something that can be easily digestible. The charts themselves look like the human body, and I think that's why it's more accessible to me. Because a lot of these astrology charts, I look at it, that it looks like a cross stitch. Like, I don't know what that is. So when I see this, I'm like, oh, I get this. This looks like a head. That looks like a heart. I can understand that. I'm also an energy worker and work with the chakra system, which is involved in this too. And so there's 5 different types of people in the world. And there's different percentage of people currently in our world population for each type. So the world is set up around the majority. And then the other people who are not in the majority types, it's up to us to figure out how to navigate within that world. And so the human design is really helpful because it may make you understand why either things feel simple to you or things don't feel right to you. And so it can be validating. The 5 types are the manifester, the manifesting generator, the generator, projector, and reflector. So the manifester is the most rare type. This is probably, I think it's only 7% of the population right now is a manifester. Their strategy is to initiate, and their not self-theme is anger. And so you could tell if you're successful if you're initiating and you have satisfaction. But if you're angry, there's a good chance something's not really clicking. They're the ones who get things rolling, who also benefit from the people in their communities. In history and historically, if you think back to ancient times, they were like the emperors and the rulers. In today's society, they might fit into the CEO role, or they might be just totally rogue and very independent person who has a very specific following. And so it's interesting to see who is a manifester. The next one that I'm going to go into, I'm just going to go from the most rare to the most common. So the reflector, that's actually only 1% of the population. And their strategy is to be sort of pushed to do something. They work on like a 30-day cycle to make decisions usually. And they're very good at reflecting back to the community what's happening in the community. Whether that's their family, whether that's their friends, or literally their community. And so often they have to separate what's theirs and what's everybody else's, as far as emotions, thoughts, feelings. When you look at the chart, there's different centers that can be filled in. They have 0, no filled in centers. They're wide open. So it can be very interesting to navigate if you're a reflector. Often they're centered in the middle of a community because they're so valuable, but they often want to retreat and just be in the middle of nowhere. And so that's a reflector. And projector, like I said, that's what I am. It's growing. I think projectors are between 20 and 25%. They're currently the world leaders. The majority of the world leaders are projectors right now. That's sort of what's happening. Very much the guides, teachers, less about initiating, more for being invited in, such as, our systems of politics are voting now. So, voted in, invited in. Also, a lot of influencers that are guides that, you're learning from are projectors, but it's still pretty rare. A lot of projectors have a hard time showing up because we don't have a lot of natural energy. We thrive on momentum. I say we because that is what I am. And so momentum helps us keep moving forward. Maybe you're the type of person who can't get started on something, but once someone says, here's your task, or here's an idea, you run with it. Yes, and you're off. And then as soon as the momentum dies, you're like, why can't I keep going? So we thrive on that. We wait for the invitation. That's the strategy. Our not self-theme is bitterness. And so if you're feeling bitter about something, you probably weren't invited in and they didn't listen to what you had to say. And so paying attention to that, very helpful for projectors. The next one is a manifesting generator. So a manifesting generator is kind of a mix of a manifester and a generator, but they're very unique. Most famous people are manifesting generators because they catch our attention. They are always finding a new way to combine things. They probably have 10 hobbies and they found a way to make it all into one hobby so they can do it after work every day. Or they have a business idea that's so creative, no one ever thought of doing life that way. And so they're very attractive personalities. People will find them interesting, but they also can be really intense. And so there might be a deterrence there for like, well, that's a little out there for me, right? But a lot of manifesting generators are very popular because a lot of famous people are that. Their strategy is to respond. And so they have this innate desire to be lit up. If they know they're doing something right, if they're lit up about it and they're like, oh, this is exciting. If they're not excited, they probably won't do it. Or they'll drag their feet and, do something they're more excited about first. And so the not self-esteem is frustration. And so if they're frustrated with something, it's probably not a good. So that's the manifesting generator. Probably about 30% of the population is manifesting generators. And I don't know if these numbers fully add up to 100, so just bear with me. And what the generators are the life force of society. They have that innate energy and that motor inside to keep going day in and day out, but they also are prone to burnout. So you have to be aware of your energy and maintaining your daily. It's like they run on a daily cycle of like they start the engine in the morning, they go to bed at night, it's our typical society norm is based on the generator. They're the biggest population. So if you're not a manifesting generator, you're probably in this about 40% tile. Together, all the generators are almost 70% of our population. So it's really what fuels it. They have the same strategy as a manifesting generator. You want to see if you are, responding to something. You're probably excited about it. But unlike a manifesting generator, you might respond to things that are just, you feel very called to do it. It's more of you have extreme values that you're very attached to. And you're like, that's me. I'm responding. That's me. That's my value. A lot of generators have very strong opinions about how life works, but they're here to be happy. They came to live here to be fulfilled. So, if you're happy, if you're satisfied, that you're on the right track. And if you're not, then you're probably frustrated and you should probably think about what's going on. So those are the 5 types, kind of goes into their strategy, how you know if you're lit up or things are working, and if they're not.
Can you remind me the reflector? I think I missed that one. The reflector, kind of a red flag.
Yeah. So for a reflector, if you are feeling like rushed in a decision, pause. Yes, because if they feel rushed or if they feel like something's just not aligning, they need to wait to make their decision. That's that 30-day cycle to really take in all the information. And if they feel pushed to do something, they're like, yes, okay. It's literal, they're pushed to do it. Then it's a yes, it feels right.
Gotcha. That is so interesting. And of course, me and my Enneagramness, I'm like trying to translate,
yes, I do that all the time.
Which type? But really, it's a combination. Like for reflector, for example, that could be a type 9. Like if you're type 9 in the group, you might be gravitating toward that. But I can also see where other types could be that. Like me, I don't necessarily think I'm a reflector, but I can see where like a type 8 could be a reflector. Even a type 7 could be a reflector, especially a really secure, healthy type 7 going to a type 5 can really step back and observe and reflect. So when me as a type 7, when I'm in that very secure and healthy space, I can see me doing that. That's when I don't like to be rushed. And so I love paying attention to those interactions. And of course, we're just talking about behaviors, but the real meat for the Enneagram is motivations, and for human design is really about the energy that's within you. That's what's driving it, which is even more quantum down than motivations, even the unconscious motivations that the Enneagram teaches us about. So I think it's really cool to kind of see how different systems can really work together. And the more systems that you can learn about yourself, like understand your profile, just the more awareness you're going to get.
Absolutely. And the human design profile, so those are the types. But if you were to dig into your profile, I think that aligns more with your Enneagram. So the profile is your number. I call it a fraction because it looks like a fraction. So I'm a 3/5. And so you'll have a number there. It's called your profile. That I think connects so much to Enneagram because my 3/5 is, I'm a 7 too in Enneagram. And it makes so much sense because I'm the great life experimenter in human design, 3/5. And then a 7 too makes sense as well for that. So I think that's interesting case study to dive into is, okay, does your profile match what you got for your Enneagram? I think that would be really interesting to dive into.
Yeah. I think so too. I was wondering if you're a type 7, so I'm glad that you validated that for me.
Yes, very much.
And I really think it depends on the nature versus the nurture, how we've been nurtured, because we can take on energy from our environment that can make those kinds of shifts, especially if our office isn't arranged in a certain way.
Yes, you're remote.
Having that flow or whatnot. Well, I'm super. This is not the end of the conversation. Chris is going to help me go through my human design. That's going to be in the after party. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you get all that information. And if you're a 7, you might really learn something about yourself just through listening to that. But before we close, I want everybody to know how they can get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to learn more about what you do?
Wonderful. Yes. I mean, if you are, on Instagram, Kristen the Sage, I'll spell that one word, is my Instagram. And I go live every Tuesday and do on-the-spot readings. We can dive into your human design if you're curious about it. And I also run a self-healing masterclass that is really the basis for diving into self-trust. And if you are the type of person who is interested in learning more about human design, I do touch on how that's involved in your self-healing process. And so that is probably the best way to get started. And if you would like to reach out personally, my email is Kristen@affirmationsandinnovations. That's my business name.com. And so I would love to connect, love to hear from you and see what resonated with you with this conversation.
That is amazing. I will drop that email and your Instagram link in the comments or in the description so that it'll be easily found. But I'm excited. I don't want to rush you to get off, but I do because I want to learn about my human design. Make sure you like and share this so that people can get kind of the basics of what human design is. Thank you so much, Kristen, for being with us today.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Just remember that, of course, whatever system that you use, that's what I'm loving about this series that we're doing right now. We're touching on different personalities, and that is what's really going to help you thrive in business when you can get grounded and rooted into who you are and how you were designed to serve in this world. It's not a cult. It's not, we're just here to help you unbox yourself so that you can unleash your power. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing the Unbox Your Personality podcast. To learn more about yourself, go to powercoachjen.com. Find out how you are different so you can make your difference.